Hey everyone, welcome to another video. How are you all doing? Hopefully good, as we are finally looking towards the kind of final stretch. We're almost there with the Oscars. I am here to talk about predictions. There have been so many updates since my last predictions, and I really want to get into it with you guys. So let's get into it. So just the quick big update since my last predictions video, which was quite some time ago now, as it was just after Oppenheimer and Barbie had released. Dune Part 2 is obviously out of the race now after being delayed to 2024. We've had all of the major film festivals happen with Venice, TIFF, Telluride. I think New York is currently in progress. I've seen quite a few more of these movies as well. Not as much as I would like, but when I go to the Brisbane International Film Festival, I will have a lot more knowledge on a lot of these movies. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into Best Picture, where for the win, I am keeping my prediction at number one, the same as last time. Oppenheimer at number one. Still a clear frontrunner, I think, in terms of being that massive technical achievement, as well as drawing a lot of success at the box office and doing surprisingly well with audiences. When I first watched it, I didn't think it would do as well with audiences because it requires a little bit of patience from you, but it has. It is a massive feat in cinema, and right now, I still think it is a frontrunner. But jumping right up into number two is Poor Things. This is kind of the festival darling, getting a lot of awards attention from the festivals, a lot of people calling it a masterpiece, some people calling it their favorite movie of all time, and the last time we got that buzz resulted in a Best Picture win with Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think the only thing holding it back from a win right now is the fact that it is still going to be a really weird movie, and some of the boomers in the Academy are probably not going to enjoy it as much, which is going to hold it back a tiny bit. But I still think it is a very strong contender, and one I am really excited to see at the Brisbane International Film Festival in a couple of weeks. Number three, we have Barbie. It's just the movie of the moment. I don't think in terms of quality it stands up to what I'm hearing about some of these other films, just because it is a little bit more catered towards a casual audience. And having seen the movie, there are a lot of things thrown into your face. There's no subtlety behind it, but that is seen as a positive and kind of goes into its real fun, quirky personality that it has. I think it's a great movie, and I think just because of its overwhelming success and the fact that it has struck a chord with a lot of people, makes it a real serious contender. So that's why it's at number three. Number four, Killers of the Flower Moon. Honestly, do I think that this movie is going to be enjoyed by a ton of people? Yes. Do I think it has a chance of winning a ton of Oscars? No. I think with Martin Scorsese movies, we're kind of at a stage now where he gets recognized for his work with nominations. It happened last time with The Irishman, but he doesn't really win anything because, to me, they're all very technically well-made movies, but they're not movies, I think, that people really talk about in high esteem when they're talking about some of their favorite movies of that year. Not that they're well liked, because they definitely are, but they just kind of lack that edge, I think, that makes them a winner in terms of Best Picture. Obviously, Marty has been robbed of some Oscars in the past. He's definitely been really well deserving of quite a few, but I really don't see this movie winning Best Picture. There is a world where Martin Scorsese gets really honored here, because there's been a lot of talk about this potentially being his second last film. So in a way, kind of honoring his career with a win would be really nice, because he's so well respected for obvious reasons. But I just don't see that being enough to push him over the line and win. Number five, I have The Zone of Interest. Despite what a lot of people who have seen the movie say, just because it is still looked at as a lot of people's favorites of the year, it has overwhelmingly positive reviews everywhere, I still have it in my 10. A lot of people have taken it out because I hear it's a bit more of a slow burn, it's a little bit more methodical, but I'm also hearing that it is very deeply effective, and with its subject matter, I think that it could very well be a possibility that it gets nominated in Best Picture. And quite easily too. I think that this is now going to be the international contender for this year. We're going to get into Anatomy of a Fall little bits later, but this just really looks pretty strong. And with A24 behind it, they're probably going to give it a big push in terms of a campaign. So I don't see why not. Number 6, I have American Fiction. This was not on my radar at all until TIFF, and it won the People's Choice Award. Now, that doesn't always correlate with a Best Picture nomination, but it has a lot lately. Within the past 5 years or so at least, it has always correlated with a Best Picture nomination. So that's why it is so high. There is a possibility where this is the first movie in a while that doesn't get a nomination there, but I think that it seems well-liked enough to get in. And there's a couple of categories where it could quite easily get a nomination to really get it into Best Picture. Number 7, Maestro. This didn't have the most impressive reviews out of Venice, but with the New York Film Festival progressing, it seems like it is doing a little bit better. To me, from everything that I have heard about this movie and seeing the trailer, this really just looks like Mank in a lot of respects, where it looks very technically well crafted. I'll probably enjoy it. I really loved Mank, but I don't think it's a movie that a lot of people are going to watch or be really invested in when they do watch, despite the fact that it's probably technically brilliant and has fantastic performances. Number 8, Sadly Past Lives. Having seen this movie, it is one of my favorites of the year. I adore this movie so much, but it just seems like a lot of the momentum it had earlier in the year in terms of an Oscar campaign are dying off real quickly. There is the fact that we've got all of these new movies that have come out. There's a lot of that recency bias. A lot of people are looking towards the new shiny thing, and Past Lives is kind of getting forgotten. There's the fact that it didn't do that well in the box office. A24 movies aren't massive blockbuster hits, I know that, but they always usually profit and profit quite a bit. I hear Past Lives did not do as well as what a lot of people thought it would there, so that definitely impacts it, which is such a shame because this movie is fantastic. There is a possibility that this doesn't even get nominated. Number 9, The Holdovers. Okay, I have longly said that I don't believe in this movie getting a nomination, despite the fact that it seems like a lot of the boomers in the Academy are going to really, really enjoy this one. I'm finally putting it in my 10 because the reviews out of the festivals were a lot better than what I was anticipating. I was really expecting kind of Green Book level quality in terms of reviews, even something a little bit less, but it's done a lot better, surprisingly. And people who are more into art house cinema are enjoying this as well. So I really think that this is going to get a bit more of a push, and it probably will climb higher in my predictions as we progress. Number 10, Anatomy of a Fall. The reason why this has been pushed down, as I'm sure you are aware, France did not put this movie forward as their international contender. What a weird choice that was. I mean, that is really baffling to me. They had practically guaranteed an Oscar. It was going to probably win international film. It was either going to be that or Anatomy of a Fall. But instead, they put forward The Taste of Things, which I hear did okay, but Anatomy of a Fall won the Palme d'Or. It's got all of this critical praise. A lot of people really enjoy its approach. I hear it's quite accessible too. I mean, what were they thinking? This kind of seems like Portrait of a Lady on Fire all over again, where they had a real solid contender and a film that people are calling a masterpiece and enjoying, and they don't put it forward. It's just baffling. This is kind of like last year when India didn't put forward RRR, where that was probably guaranteed a nomination there too. It just baffles me what these federations in these countries are thinking when they're putting forward a film. Like, do they pay attention to the buzz that these films are generating? Because they've just lost out on a guaranteed nomination and perhaps a win in a category just by not putting forward Anatomy of a Fall. And it kind of deads its campaign in a lot of ways when we talk about major categories. There is a chance this doesn't get nominated at all because of that. RRR met a similar fate last year where it only got song and that was it. And early on in the Oscar campaign process, there was talk about it being a real contender and perhaps the international pick for Best Picture. But India didn't put it forward. It just killed its campaign in a lot of those categories, and that was it. So we'll see what happens with Anatomy of a Fall, but it doesn't look good. Number 11, I have All of Us Strangers, another film that kind of came out of nowhere at the festivals, and one that I will be seeing in a couple of weeks at the Brisbane International Film Festival, and I'm really excited to do so. This has really struck a chord with audiences. The letterbox looks great. The Metacritic looks great. It seems like it draws big emotions out of the audiences. The performance I hear are amazing. So I'm really excited to check this out. And there is a good chance that this does sneak in for a nomination. The thing that holds it back to me is I'm hearing that it's a lot like Aftersun. And while Aftersun is an incredible movie, and I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it, it didn't really get in anywhere. It only got Best Actor, and that was it. So we could see a similar fate with All of Us Strangers. Number 12, sadly, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I'm starting to think that this ain't getting in. It's just hard to really pin down what specific major categories it could get into. In terms of a screenplay nomination and a director nomination, I just think there's way too many strong contenders that are going to push it out. And when you start getting pushed out of these categories, it makes it very hard to get nominated for Best Picture. Winning Best Animated Feature, unfortunately, isn't enough to get into Best Picture. And despite how incredible that movie it is, it's probably not going to get in. Number 13, The Color Purple. Another movie I really don't believe in. I wasn't impressed with the trailers. The posters don't look the best. I really think that this is going to look like an inferior version of what Steven Spielberg did in the 90s. And perhaps the play as well. I could be proven wrong. I'll definitely see the movie and check it out. But from what I'm seeing, it just doesn't seem that strong. I think it can get into a couple of craft categories and maybe make some noise in some of the acting categories, and that's really it. Number 14, Napoleon. I still need to wait and see reactions for this one. I do think on its best day it can get nominated for sure. Ridley Scott is an incredible director, and I don't think he's done that bad lately. Of course, House of Gucci didn't really get the reception that I think a lot of people were hoping for. But The Last Duel, which he made in the same year, I thought was fantastic. And just got so unfairly treated by so many people, I think. And the Academy made jokes at it as well. It was just really weird and bizarre for quite an innovative movie, I thought. Napoleon could do a lot better in terms of a box office result because it's Napoleon. A lot of people know the name, they're familiar with that name, and that could draw in a lot of buzz. You also have Joaquin Phoenix in this role. He is now a draw, especially after Joker. So I do think it's going to fare a little bit better at the box office, but I really need to wait and see what the reviews are going to look like, as well as if people are going to see this. I'm definitely going to see it. I'm definitely excited about it, but we really need to wait on those factors because right now I think it looks really well crafted and could get into a number of categories, but as I said, we'll have to wait and see. Number 15, Saltburn, another movie I'm going to be seeing at the Brisbane International Film Festival. Very excited for this one. The reviews aren't doing as well as I'd hoped. However, they're not terrible. It seems like there are people that are really, really passionate about it, and they're kind of similar to Emerald Fennell's last film in Promising Young Woman, which did do fairly well, got nominated in a ton of categories, and won Best Original Screenplay. Saltburn, I don't think has that kind of heat yet, but it is releasing soon. I'm going to be seeing it at a film festival. We'll need to wait on what the audience really thinks about it before we go forward. I definitely think it can still be a contender, but right now it's on the outside looking in. Very excited for this movie though. Number 16, The Boy and the Heron, did pretty well at TIFF, but being an animated film, I just don't really see it get in, especially with Spider-Verse probably going to win that category. It really hurts its campaign in Best Picture. But on its best day, it could definitely get in. Number 17, May December, another festival movie I'll be seeing soon. Very excited for this one as well. Todd Haynes movies don't really get the movie into Best Picture, if you know what I mean. It's usually the actors that get in, and I think that could happen for sure. But I don't really see it get in for Best Picture personally. 18, Next Goal wins. Another festival movie I'll be seeing. Starting to sound like a broken record, I know. This really didn't do as well as I'd hoped out of TIFF. I'm kind of hoping that the wrong audience saw it. I do remember this, put this in your mind. When Jojo Rabbit came out, it didn't have the best Rotten Tomatoes score. It was nearing a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes because the whole Taika playing Hitler aspect of it didn't really rub people the right way when it first came out of TIFF. So I'm hoping that we're going to just see a similar kind of reaction where TIFF just aren't too keen on Taika Waititi movies and the rest of the world really enjoy them. But there is a little bit of skepticism there. For me, I'm seeing it as the closing night film, which is perfect because after seeing so many movies, you do get really exhausted. And I think that's just the perfect way to cap it off. Just a nice crowd pleaser comedy. I hope it's a good time. But it's really not looking good in terms of an Oscar campaign. 19, Air. Honestly, I just think this movie's dead in the water. It had that early buzz out of South by Southwest, and people really like it. But I just don't hear that many people talking about it. Of course, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck could do a really good Oscar campaign and get in. But right now, no one's talking about this movie. I mean, as much as a lot of you out there really enjoy this movie, not that many people are really promoting it or talking about it. I'm hearing a lot more about a lot of these movies that I'm putting higher on this list. And I think Air's just kind of going to be forgotten about in terms of the Oscar race. It might get into one category, but that's really it. 20, Priscilla, I don't see as a Best Picture contender at all. I see it as a contender in maybe a couple of craft categories and some acting categories for sure, but not Best Picture. Sofia Coppola movies don't really do well in that regard, but I'm hearing that this is her best movie potentially since Lost in Translation, so we'll have to wait and see what kind of buzz it generates when it gets a full wide release, but right now, definitely not a contender. Okay, for Best Director, I think Nolan finally gets his Oscar. Way too overdue, I think. He should probably have like 2 Oscars by now, but it is what it is. I think he'll finally get awarded here for Oppenheimer, just for being that massive cinematic achievement and just really gripping a lot of audiences. What more is there to say here? I really think that it is the achievement of the year. Number 2, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things. A lot of people saying that this might be his best movie. And from the trailer, it looks so ambitious. It looks so stylistic. I myself am so excited to see this. It looks so creative and very, very exciting. Exactly what we need right now. But its weirdness just puts it off a lot, I think, in terms of a win. And Oppenheimer, I think, is just too much of a beast for Poor Things right now. Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon, I definitely think he gets in for a nomination. I don't think it wins, similar to The Irishman. Greta Gerwig for Barbie. They're finally going to give her props since Lady Bird. That was her last director nomination. There was a lot of talk about her getting snubbed for Little Women, which I think is her best movie. Barbie, I do think she gets in because I think this really has put her on the map as a kind of a top tier director. Not just in film, Twitter, letterbox world, but in just the casual audiences and the world in general. A lot of people know her name now and kind of what she does to a very basic degree, but they still have that understanding now because Barbie has put her on the map. Number 5, Jonathan Glazer for The Zone of Interest. I really think that this is kind of like the tar of this year where it's just that really well-crafted movie from a director who isn't too active, but finally comes back, makes a movie, and gets a nomination. I think that happens here. Number 6, Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall. As I said before, the whole France not putting this forward hurts this a lot. And even with the nature of this film, it's kind of a courtroom drama, so those films don't normally get a director nomination. They usually do better in screenplay. So I think that translates here as well. Alexander Payne for The Holdovers. Definitely could sneak in for sure. He has been nominated before, and I hear this is really enjoyable. But I just think there's just so many more big, ambitious movies. I honestly think the top 3 at least are locks, and Greta Gerwig has a really great chance. Jonathan Glazer is the only one I think on shaky ground, and Alexander Payne, Justine Triet could definitely push up, but I don't see it right now. Celine's song for Past Lives, man, I wish he was getting in. Past Lives was fantastic. But as I said, just it's kind of dead in the water now, and it's just so sad to see. I'm really shocked at that reaction because the people that did see it, it drew big emotions out of them. It happened to me. I got really choked up by the end of this movie. I was a mess, and I'll never forget it. And a lot of that goes to the way that Celine's song really built up these relationships and these dynamics. It's so innovative in that regard, but I don't think the Academy is going to acknowledge that, I'm afraid. Number 9, Bradley Cooper for Maestro. He could definitely push up. If he has a great Oscar campaign and people are starting to really take to this movie, it could get in, like David Fincher did with Mank. As I said, it looks technically brilliant. The cinematography in particular looks fucking stunning. And I'm hearing that there's just some scenes in there that are just worthy of a cinema trip for sure. And when I hear that, that definitely does start to translate to a director contender. So he could definitely push up. But there's just the fact that some people are really lukewarm towards this movie. Some people outright hate it. You know, there has been some controversy around this film, and that might hurt it a little bit, I think. Ridley Scott for Napoleon, just being that big, epic, historical drama. I hear it's 3 hours long. It's going to be massive, and I think it's going to be technically brilliant. But once again, it's just that passion for Napoleon. If that really comes through, then it could get that push. But right now, I don't really see that happening. Going into the acting categories now, Cillian Murphy's still my number one. I just think that he takes it. It's just the performance that I've heard the most people talking about. And that does translate a lot in terms of the Oscar race, as well as him being really overdue and finally getting this big break in this massive lead role in a Christopher Nolan movie. Although he hasn't really done too much to promote it and go into a big Oscar campaign, a lot of these guys haven't because obviously the strikes are happening. They really can't. But I think even if there were no strikes, he wouldn't be big in terms of doing this massive promotion and doing all these interviews and press tours and going through the traditional Oscar campaign. I think that he'll be very quiet. But I think that the performance speaks for itself, and he's kind of spoken enough on it that I think that can get him to that win. Leonardo DiCaprio for Killers of the Flower Moon is at number 2. I'd love to see Leo get another Oscar. He is my favorite actor of all time, so seeing him get credited with more and more Oscars is great for me. He should fucking already have more than one. He should have like 3 or 4. It's ridiculous, but you know, if he gets credited here, that's really cool. I'm going to be seeing this movie very soon, in probably the next week or 2. And from what I'm hearing, the performance is amazing, and a lot of people saying it's one of his best. That's saying a lot for Leonardo DiCaprio, and if that really is true, it's a strong contender. Bradley Cooper for Maestro, that big transformational performance. Hearing him in the trailer, it kind of just convinces you that he is probably going to get nominated here. I think he is a massive, massive lock. The top 3 here, no way that these 3 are getting snubbed. I'll be out of my chair if one of these 3 do not get nominated. It would be completely shocking to me. These 3 aren't just contenders in terms of getting a nomination. They're all serious contenders for a win. The gap between these 3 is very small, and Bradley Cooper is right up there, I think. Number 4, Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction. I think he just comes along with the package. I do hear it's a good performance, and he's kind of overdue for a nomination. He is a fantastic actor. Being a massive Wes Anderson fan, it has been great to see his presence in those movies because he adds a lot to them, and he's just had a great career with great performances. I think he's one of the most iconic voices in cinema right now, and to see him get credited with a nomination would be really cool, I think. Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers. It looks like it's happening. When he works with Alexander Payne, it seems like he gets a nomination, and it just looks like it's going to happen here. Number 6, though, knocking on the door, I think, is Colman Domingo for Rustin. A lot of people are putting this in their top 3 because I hear the performance is incredible. Colman Domingo, another absolutely fantastic actor that deserves all the awards recognition in the world. I really, really love what he does. However, I hear the movie's kind of trash, and that does hurt a movie in terms of the acting nominations. It's not always the case. You know, Ana de Armas got a nomination for Blonde, even though that movie is hot garbage. Rustin could maybe go through a similar process where it doesn't get nominated anywhere else, but it just gets Coleman Domingo in for a nomination. I do hear the performance is really strong, and the movie's kind of built around that performance, but we'll have to see how little passion for this movie kind of hurts it in terms of his campaign personally. Number 7, Barry Keoghan for Saltburn. Fantastic actor. Got nominated last year for Banshees of Inisherin. The performance looks pretty great. It seems like Barry Keoghan always turns up a great performance lately. He is just a really great up-and-comer. I don't really see him getting in, though, just because of Saltburn's performance and the fact that people are going, doesn't look like a real Oscar contender. So that hurts it. 8, Napoleon, Joaquin Phoenix, just playing such a monumental figure in history. And if he does pull it off, could definitely get in for sure. But he's in an American accent while playing an iconic figure in French history. It is a bizarre choice that he doesn't at least have an accent here. Because, as I said, Napoleon is a massive figure in French history. It's just weird that someone who is so French and is such, as I said, an iconic figure in French history doesn't have a French accent in his fucking movie. It's just a bizarre choice to make him American. I don't really like that choice personally, and I think that can knock him out of being a Best Actor contender. Number 9, Andrew Scott for All of Us Strangers. This movie could definitely get that push in those acting categories. I hear that his performance is amazing, and I cannot wait to see it at BIFF. It's just the fact that if this is After Sun in terms of its Oscar run, how well does this do in some categories? And Andrew Scott could get snubbed here. It's a real possibility for sure. Number 10, TOU for Past Lives. Another fantastic performance in that movie. I don't think he gets in though. I think out of the 3 performances, the central performances, he's probably the most likely to not get a nomination. Not that it's the worst out of the 3. They're all very strong and there's no such thing as a worst there. They're all incredible. But I just don't see him getting in at all, to be honest with you. Best Actress is turning out to possibly be one of the funnest categories to analyze. There has been some changes here, and we're going to get into that. Firstly, Emma Stone, I think, is a lock to win her 2nd Oscar, and very well deserved, I think. She is a phenomenal performer. La La Land is my favorite film of all time, and her performance there was incredible. And to see her possibly give another tour de force performance here in Poor Things, I'm very excited to see. And just the buzz that it has generated, I think, guarantees it that win, because it seems so ambitious what she's going for. It's so different to what we're used to from her, and it seems like she really pulls it off. That to me translates to a win. And the fact that Poor Things is a very strong contender in multiple categories really helps this film, I think. Number 2, Carey Mulligan for Maestro. I was not expecting this at all, but the buzz says she's up there with Bradley Cooper. I really thought this was a Bradley Cooper one-man show. But Carey Mulligan, I hear, matches that energy and kills it. So I think she's a very strong contender to get that win. I don't know if she will, though. I think Emma Stone is just far too strong. Number 3, Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall. This could drop a lot more, but I still believe that she can get in, because I hear her performance is incredible and just a fantastic lead actress performance. But that campaign is just going to hurt it so much. It's going to be fascinating to see how much it really affects it. It could do fuck all, and then it just does really well anyway. I hope that's the case. If it's a great movie, put it in. I'm fine with that. It doesn't matter if it gets put forward for international by a country. If it is amazing and is deserving of these nominations, give it to it. That's fine, and I really hope that is the case. Number 4, Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon. A massive change in this category, because all of us thought she was in supporting, and I thought she was the lock to win. And I think now that she is in lead, she's not getting that Oscar. I really believe that. I'm kind of comparing this a lot to Michelle Williams in The Fabelmans from last year, where it looked like she was a lock to win supporting, and then they just randomly go, nah, she's lead, even though she was clearly supporting, having seen that film. And she had no chance of winning that year. There were just too many powerhouse performances to go up against, and she had absolutely zero chance of winning. Lily Gladstone, I think, has a better chance because I hear that she does have a substantial role in the movie, and she is really good, but good enough to win lead actress against what I'm hearing from Emma Stone in Poor Things and Carey Mulligan in Maestro. I don't see it, to be honest with you. I do think she gets in for a nomination, and it'll probably be well deserved, but not the win. I just think that was just a bit of a bonehead move to not put her in supporting if you had the chance to. Really should have done that. It would have got her an Oscar, and it would have been a great moment. Number 5, I have Margot Robbie for Barbie. I'm not seeing it that high on too many predictions. She's usually around 8 or 7 in a lot of people's predictions that I've seen. I think she gets in just on the fact that this movie probably will be a classic in years to come, and it's just weird that she doesn't come along for the ride. Ryan Gosling, I think, definitely gets in. But the person that plays Barbie, I think, just has to get in. Forget the fact of what's the better performance, or if she's doing something that we're a little bit more used to, or it doesn't fare up to some other performances. It doesn't matter sometimes. We're not always looking at what is strictly the best performance of the year. That definitely plays a part in it. But the movie's impact, I think, also plays a part in these categories, and I really see that being the biggest factor here because it's just going to be this massive cultural phenomenon. It already is, so I think Barbie and Margot Robbie just go along with that 100%. However, the one that I think could sneak in here is Kaylee Spaney for Priscilla. I said this pretty early on when we started hearing about this movie. I think that this could be like Blonde or Spencer, where it kind of gets into maybe costumes and then it gets in a lead actress nomination with really no chance of winning. Something similar could happen here for Kaylee Spaney. I hear her performance is amazing. Why not? And this movie is doing probably better than both Spencer and Blonde. So I think it has a really good chance of getting in. But actress is very strong this year, so we'll have to wait and see there. Number 7, I have substantially dropped who I thought was going to be winning for most of the year, Greta Lee for Past Lives. Once again, the way that movie's going, I just don't see it getting in anymore. It's so sad. She was fantastic in the movie, and she'd be right up there in terms of me giving her an Oscar. She's definitely in that top 5, 100%. But going back into cultural phenomenon and the movie's impact on the world, I have to face reality and just say that this just doesn't have that, I'm afraid. It's just going to be a really good movie that people on Film Twitter and Letterboxd really love, and that's really it. I hate saying that. I hate it. I know some of you don't like hearing that as well, but it's just the reality of it, I'm afraid. I love this movie. This is like a top 3 movie of the year for me, and her performance is right up there for me, but it just doesn't get in. I think I've got to face facts here and accept reality. Number 8, Fantasia Barrino for The Color Purple. As I said, I don't believe in this movie, and because of that, I just don't see every performance getting in for a nomination. A lot of people are just predicting fucking like the whole cast for this, and I just don't see it. I think it gets in a couple of people, but if this movie just doesn't do that well, I know it's going to not do well at the box office. Maybe this video ages poorly with that, but I really believe it doesn't do well at the box office. And because of that, having not a massive impact there, probably getting just decent reviews and some standout performances, I just think it misses a lot of categories, and this is one of them. Number 9, Natalie Portman for May December. Definitely think she can get in maybe, but there is the fact that this movie just isn't getting as much buzz as I need to hear for a massive Oscar campaign. I definitely think she is a contender to get in. As I said, Todd Haynes movies do get their actresses in for sure, and that might translate to one of the other categories. But with lead, it's just so strong. It's just hard to really see a world where Natalie Portman gets in. And number 10, Tiana Taylor for 1001. I had this out of my predictions for a while, but I'm just hearing a little bit more buzz pop up, and if it gets a nice campaign behind it, it could get in. It kind of could be the To Leslie of this year, where once again, this real indie movie just kind of comes up out of nowhere and gets a nomination for the lead actress. Could happen for sure. Supporting actor here is another stacked category, and I've kind of got the same lineup as I've kind of had throughout the year. I think Robert Downey Jr. still takes home his Oscar in what will be an amazing moment. Just a really great performance where everyone kind of got that realization once again that he is just a fantastic actor. I mean, you kind of know that already. If you've seen shit like Zodiac, or I know controversial, he's great in Tropic Thunder, and he's great as Iron Man. It's a fun performance. What he is asked to do, he delivers. And he's always done that his entire career. Whatever's asked of him in terms of performance, he always just goes over the top and is just a standout in practically every movie he's in. And it happens again here. But this one, I think, just has a lot more weight behind it because this is a massive contender for many Oscars. Number 2, though, knocking right at the door, is Ryan Gosling for Barbie. His campaign has been immaculate, I think. And just everyone loves him. I think he's amazing. I've always been a fan of Ryan Gosling. And it's kind of sad that he's never won an Oscar. I would have given it to him for La La Land being my favorite movie of all time. But he didn't win there. He's been a contender in a lot of other movies that he's been in. This could be the one to get him in there. The whole Kennedy, the whole movement behind it, the cultural impact is there. We don't really see that out of a supporting performance too much, but just the fact that Robert Downey Jr.'s Oppenheimer performance is more of a thespian level, traditional actor level, fantastic performance. Ryan Gosling is a little bit silly, hurts it, I think. Number 3, Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon. Still a massive contender, 100%. In terms of this antagonist role, I'm hearing he kills it, and I can't wait to see it. 4, Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things. I had always put him in my 5, but I was always a little bit hesitant because I didn't know how Poor Things would fare in terms of an Oscar campaign. Apparently it's going to go really well, and Mark Ruffalo seems like a lock now. From what I'm hearing, just a great performance. Kind of like Robert Downey Jr., where I think he is just this fantastic actor. If you've seen stuff like Foxcatcher and Spotlight, oh my god, he is amazing. Zodiac, he just kills it. Whenever he's given a real substantial actor's role, he always is a standout. I have loved his work. He's more than just the Incredible Hulk and delivering all these funny one-liners as the Hulk. He has so much more to him as an actor, and it seems like he brings that here. It seems like this is a comedic role still, but it's kind of channeled in a very different way, where it's just going to be really fun to see. I cannot wait to see his performance. Number 5, I'm going Willem Dafoe as well for Poor Things. I hear he's very great in this role. It's Willem Dafoe. He kills it in whatever he's in. Big surprise. I hope he gets in. I love his work, and it seems like with Poor Things, he kills it, so I cannot wait to see that performance. Honestly, it's quite hard to see the next 5 kind of really sneaking in here, but number 6, I have John Magaro for Past Lives. Another fantastic performance here, and I really hope he gets in. His character was just very mature and was really well handled in terms of the subtle nuances of the character, and that couldn't have been delivered without this performance. So it'd be cool to see him credited, but I really don't think he gets in. Coleman Domingo for The Color Purple, same reasons I've given before. I don't believe in the movie in terms of an Oscar campaign, so I just don't think Coleman Domingo gets in. And especially if he gets in for Rustin, it's just weird, I think, if he gets the double nomination there. That doesn't happen very often. So it just seems like The Color Purple is the performance that gets forgotten about, while the Rustin one is the Oscar contender, potentially. Paul Mescal for All of Us Strangers got nominated last year for Aftersun. I think if any performance gets nominated for this movie, it's probably going to be this one. Although, once again, I think it's going to be quite difficult to get in. It's such a stacked lineup, these 5. Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction, I hear, is great and could get in. And Dominic Sessa for The Holdovers, I hear, is also very great. But I don't know how many Holdovers characters and performers are going to get in. I think there's 2 that are going to get in, and he'll probably miss out. Supporting actress is a little bit of a chaotic category now that Lily Gladstone's out. It kind of made everything stable, I think. I was like, okay, she's winning, and everyone else is kind of in the mix, but I don't see as a real strong contender. Now the mix is now battling for the win. So it is definitely interesting. It's that chaos that I love to see. But it's really hard to pin down a winner. Right now, I have Divine Joy Randolph in The Holdovers because I hear she steals the show. She's a fantastic actress. I know a lot of people don't like The Idol, but she was the standout in that show. She was incredible. And I'm really not surprised to see that she gives a great performance in The Holdovers, a movie that is doing quite well. Number 2, I have Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer. I think a great performance that deserves to be recognized. And she has longly deserved a lot of Oscars nominations in the past. And she hasn't quite gotten them. And I hope she gets in here. I do think she's a contender, but I really just don't see her winning. There are some people that were kind of lukewarm on her performance. And that does hurt it, I think. Number 3, Julianne Moore for May December. I think this is the one May December nomination that I think it definitely gets because it is a substantial supporting role that probably is considered a dual lead kind of role, but being the secondary actor, she is put in supporting kind of thing. But because of that, because it's substantial, because she has a lot to do, because she's Julianne Moore and a great actress, she could definitely get in. Number 4, I think a surprise pick for a lot of people. I have Vanessa Kirby for Napoleon. I do hear a lot of her scenes did get cut and they're going to be in Ridley Scott's 4-hour epic edition of Napoleon, the director's cut. But I do think in the 3-hour cut of this movie, I think that she probably will have some substantial amount of screen time. And from what I've seen, her performance to me looks like the one that's drawing me in a little bit more than Joaquin Phoenix's, which is a little bit surprising because it's hard to outperform Joaquin Phoenix in a role. But she looks magnetic on the screen, and if she really keeps that going throughout the movie, not just in these little snippets in the trailer, I think there's going to be a lot of talk about her performance. That is speculation completely from my part because we don't know yet, but I think people are going to say that she steals the show in this movie. Number 5, the Color Purple nomination I think that does get in is Danielle Brooks, because I do hear that that is one of the strongest performances in the play. Fantasia Barrino in the lead is obviously another one that is considered monumental, but I think Danielle Brooks doesn't have as much competition, so I do think she gets in. I don't think both Color Purple people get in for supporting, just one, and I think Danielle Brooks is the one. Number 6 is Taraji P. Henson for The Color Purple. As I said, I don't think both of them get in, and I think Danielle Brooks is a little bit more likely. Number 7, America Ferrera for Barbie. We all know the monologue. It either makes or breaks the movie, I think, for some people. I thought that it was well performed, but not the best written just because it's just shoving its message down your throat, and I just don't really like that. Whether I agree or disagree with the message, it doesn't matter. I definitely agree with what it's saying, but I just didn't like the way it was presented at all. But the performance is great. That doesn't matter. And I think that we do have a clip for her if she does get nominated. Number 8, Penelope Cruz for Ferrari. I hear that she steals the show from Adam Driver, which I think is also saying something because Adam Driver is fantastic. I hear that she is incredible in this role, and I think if Ferrari's going to get nominated for any supporting or lead performances, it'd be this one. But Ferrari is also not doing the best, so that definitely hurts it a lot. Number 9, Viola Davis in Air. Probably the best performance in the movie, I think. She was fantastic for sure. But as I said, Air's dead in the water, I think. And then I have Sandra Hüller for The Zone of Interest. I just don't think it gets in a lot of these categories because I think they're going to be more quiet performances. There's just not going to be too much to draw on for the Academy to really put a vote behind some of these actors. I think this is more of a piece where it's the director's vision that we're looking at and not the singular performances. Next up, Best Original Screenplay. I think Barbie wins it for sure. Greta Gerwig finally gets her Oscar with Noah Baumbach. Be a great collaboration and a great Oscar win, I think. Once again, its cultural impact and significance, the fact that so many people adore it, gets it in my book. Number 2 is Past Lives. You cannot deny the excellence of this screenplay. I just think that it needs to get in. Please get a nomination here. I really hope it does. And I do think it will because the screenplay is just fantastic. So well written and so layered. There is a lot of empathy and maturity in this script that just deserves all the credit in the world, I think. I think if we're looking at just merit and just what is the best screenplay in terms of this category, I think that Past Lives is genuinely the best. I do think it's a better screenplay than Barbie by a long stretch. But we have to look at what's going to get votes here, and I don't think Past Lives gets enough votes to win Best Original Screenplay. Number 3, we have The Holdovers, because Alexander Payne just gets in with this category when he's really going for an Oscar. And it does look quite fun. It does look like the dialogue is engaging and snappy and charming. So I think all of that really works for it. For Anatomy of a Fall, being that really compelling courtroom drama is definitely enough to get it in, especially if it is as good as what everyone is saying it is, which I genuinely think it will be. Number 5, Maestro. This could get snubbed just because of people's reaction to it, but being this really just well-crafted film, the dialogue does look very magnetic. Also, yes, you can have great performances with a weak screenplay, but a great screenplay boosts them up to the stratosphere. And the fact that Bradley Cooper and Carey Mulligan are both heavy contenders to potentially win Best Actor and Actress, the screenplay, I think, goes a lot into that as well. So I do see a nomination for Maestro potentially. Number 6, I have May December, just because it could be that very strong screenplay movie. Todd Haynes does movies like that where they're more of a screenplay movie than a director's movie, if you know what I mean. And May December definitely looks like that. Number 7, Saltburn. Emerald Fennell won an Oscar for her previous film in this category. And if Saltburn can get the momentum that it needs, it could definitely get in. It looks very great from the trailer that I've seen. So I'm very excited to see it and see what Emerald Fennell does. But there are some people that really don't like it, and that does hurt it. Number 8, Air. The screenplay is the strongest element to the movie. I think that it is written fairly well. The dialogue is pretty good. So it could definitely get in. It kind of goes at a nice pace. It's written very well. There's some great lines in there. It's very charming. Napoleon, being that big epic, that does help sometimes. I mean, Dune got in a couple of years ago. Big movies do quite well in these categories. Top Gun Maverick got a screenplay nomination, and Napoleon could follow suit there for sure. Number 10, kind of a wish list pick, but there is an outside chance that this gets in. Asteroid City. Wes Anderson movies sadly just don't do as well as I would like in terms of Academy Award nomination. They kind of gave him his dues in the Grand Budapest Hotel, and he really hasn't been back since, with just a couple of small nominations here and there. And The French Dispatch got shut out entirely. But Asteroid City is a little bit more well-liked, I think, than The French Dispatch, which is kind of surprising to me. And the fact that it is definitely Wes Anderson's maybe most ambitious screenplay. It is very layered, very sophisticated. There's a lot to look into here with this movie. And that does help it in this category for sure. I think it is one of the best screenplays of the year. This movie has grown on me a lot since I first saw it. And I adored it when I first saw it. So I think that lasting impact does help. And I think when people look back on the movie a little bit more, they're going to be a little bit more fond to it. More time kind of benefits Asteroid City as we get further and further to when we announce the nominations. So keep an eye on Asteroid City. It could get in if it does start building some momentum, especially in the guilds. Adapted screenplay, I'm going to be a bit risky here and say Poor Things wins over Oppenheimer, while Oppenheimer wins directing. That makes Poor Things a really strong contender for Best Picture. Screenplay and director are two precursors that are mightily important for a Best Picture win, and screenplay, I would argue, is a little bit more important. However, in this case, I think Oppenheimer will win a lot of other categories that are just going to get it in for sure. While Poor Things will get a couple here and there in some major categories especially, but it just won't be enough to win Best Picture. It's a really fascinating race we've got right now, and I really can't wait to see it play out. But I think Yorgos Lanthimos gets credited here with a screenplay win. Oppenheimer being number 2, it is a great screenplay, and I don't think it gets enough credit. Everyone's talking about the direction and its massive technical scope and the performances. The screenplay is so engaging and varied. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to analyze there. I really think it is one of Christopher Nolan's most brilliant screenplays, and that's saying something because he's fantastic. Number 3, I have Killers of the Flower Moon. It's just going to get in. It's a Martin Scorsese movie. They just get in all of these categories. There's really not much more to say there. Number 4, American Fiction. I think that this will be the nomination that it needs to get into Best Picture. If we see this pop up in adapted screenplay, it gets in 100% for Best Picture. That is the one to look out for. Number 5, I have The Zone of Interest because it just seems like it's going to get in there. If it is a strong Best Picture contender, I think the screenplay is the one that it kind of needs. Number 6, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. It's so engaging. It's so fun. I really want it to get in. There is a chance it doesn't, though, being an animated film. And as I said, I kind of think it slipped out of the Best Picture race. Number 7, All of Us Strangers, I think is a genuine contender as well. If enough people really gravitate towards it, I say why not. Number 8, Dumb Money. Having seen this movie, I think it's really engaging. And I'd love to see a screenplay nomination for it because while it can be a little bit tacky at times, this movie, and a little bit cliched, I think overall it gets across what it wants to achieve and doing so at a really great pace with great dialogue, and that is all credited towards the screenplay. But right now, I just don't see the buzz for it at all. Even though it's a really good crowd pleaser, I think audiences will really eat this movie up, and the ones that have seen it, I think, have, but it bombed at the box office. No one really cares about this movie. Number 9, The Killer. This is the first time I'm finally talking about David Fincher's new film, and it's kind of surprising, but the fact that it's a genre film in this crime drama genre that David Fincher really likes to play into, I love it. A lot of people love it. They're always well made. They're so meticulous. David Fincher has a great attention to detail, but they never do well at the Academy. Genre films never do well at the Academy Awards, especially lately. That's why you don't see horror get in. You don't see films in that genre get in. Unless they're playing into something a little bit different. They need to be combined with another element. For example, Get Out being a horror film that got nominated for Best Picture. There was a lot of social commentary there and a lot of drama. So it needed to be mixed with all of these things to get a Best Picture nomination. It can't just be horror and that's it. And the same thing can be said with this serial killer crime drama genre. It needs to be paired with something else. Silence of the Lambs is an example where you're kind of just analyzing the killer. And the killer himself isn't the main character. So all those things need to take place for it to get in. And the killer won't be doing that. We're focusing on the killer. The movie's called The Killer. We're following Michael Fassbender through this. It just won't get in, I think, despite the fact that it is probably a great movie. Number 10, Next Goal Wins. I'm putting it in there because Jojo Rabbit got a nomination and won. Really, really personally a great Oscar win to see. I love Taika Waititi. Being born in New Zealand, I have a very strong connection to his work. And I really hope that Next Goal Wins brings him back as a great director in a lot of people's eyes. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case, unfortunately. But I still think it's sad that just because he made Thor Love and Thunder, which a lot of people agree is a pretty middling to kind of bad movie, I get all that. But that's one movie, that's one poor movie he's made. And he hasn't done another bad movie, really. You could argue Eagle vs. Shark is a little bit mid, but that was his first feature. Everything else he's done has been fantastic and very exciting. And to see him get written off after one bad movie, I think is just really poor taste, I think. And kind of shows that people just don't have or have really engaged with a lot of Taika Waititi's work and have only seen stuff like Thor and that's it. Anyway, tangent aside, let's get into Best International Feature. There has been a lot of shake-ups here where a lot of countries are putting forward their submissions. As I said, Anatomy of a Fall is out, which I thought was the number one. It would have won if France had put it forward, but they didn't. So, guess what, France? You lost out on an Oscar. Congratulations. Number 1, I have The Zone of Interest. That was always my number 2. I always thought it was a contender in a lot of other categories. And with its massive, massive rival in this race out, The Zone of Interest wins. I don't think it's close. I think this is like a unanimous vote for sure. It's just guaranteed to win. It takes all the excitement out of this category, I'm afraid. Number 2, Perfect Days got submitted by Japan, which is kind of shocking, I think, because I thought that they would put forward Koreeda's new film, Monster, which I think did a little bit better. Another film I'm going to be seeing at the festival and excited to check out. But yeah, they put forward Perfect Days, which to me was just really looked at as a great piece with a great performance. But from what I heard, I didn't think it was better than Monster. We'll have to wait and see with that one. Bit of a baffling choice, but it's definitely number 2, but I don't think it's close to taking out Zone of Interest, really. Number 3, About Dry Grasses in Turkey. I really don't know too much about this one. I know it's about 3 hours long, which kind of hurts it in terms of me wanting to check it out. Whenever I see a 3-hour movie, I'm like, ugh. But I will check it out. I do hear it's quite great and engaging for its runtime, which is a lot of stuff that I want to hear for a 3-hour movie. For The Taste of Things, that was France's submission. I do hear it's a good movie. I'm not bagging out the movie, but Anatomy of a Fall just has so much more gravitas to it. It has a lot of buzz behind it. A lot of people are excited to check it out. So them putting forward The Taste of Things was baffling, but I think it gets in for a nomination. And then honestly from here, it's really hard for me to put forward what I think is going to get in, because a lot of the foreign movies that I was familiar with and had on my radar and watch list didn't get put forward. To be honest, I think that this category has become really disappointing because of the films that were put forward by countries. It really is. I think that this could have been a very exciting category to watch out for if we had Monster in here, if we had Anatomy of a Fall in here. It'd be a really great category and good competition by some genuine contenders and some great directors. I'm really not bagging out these movies, but these other movies that didn't get put forward seemed really exciting, and it's very disappointing that we've got such a bare bones category now. It really goes into the fact that we need to change that rule. We need to have countries be able to submit more than one movie. I think that's so limiting, and the fact that we have so many great international films and they're just getting more and more exposed as the years progress. I think we need to change that rule. It's becoming quickly outdated, I think. At least 2, maybe more. I would just say unlimited. If Japan has 5 amazing movies, put forward all of them. We want the best of the best competing for an Academy Award, not limiting or just cutting out some movies. If one country has all 5 movies, put them in. If they have 1 or none, don't nominate them. It's just the way it goes. That's how the Oscars go. The Best Picture lineup doesn't always have all American movies. You might see an English movie in there, or a Japanese movie, a Korean movie, New Zealand, Australian movie. There's so many films that get represented at the Academy Awards. Sometimes there are just 10 American movies, and that's fine. We just want the best of the best. Whatever's the best that year, compete against each other. It's my little rant over. But I just think it's so disappointing that with the international category, we don't get more films getting submitted. It's just such a shame, I think. Best Animated Feature. I think that although this is kind of a 2-horse race, I think Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse takes it 100%. Just being this massive phenomenon and just being so entertaining and fantastic. I know it's not a complete story, but I don't think that hurts it all that much because we're all going to see the next one. And this movie was 2 hours and 20 minutes long. And honestly, it could have been 3 hours. I would have probably been fine with that. The film was so engaging and just fun to see. And I just think that these films are so innovative and ahead of their time with animation that it's just going to win. There's no doubt about it. Number 2, The Boy and the Heron is really the only real contender for a win. Miyazaki hasn't won for a long time in this category, and this being perhaps his final film, I don't think it is anymore. I think that he's going to make one more movie or something. But this being one of his final films, and the fact that people really did enjoy it out of TIFF, definitely gives it a boost. I think it is a contender. I don't think it's just guaranteed Spider-Man's going to win everything. Boy and the Heron could pull an upset here and there, although I do think Spider-Man wins the Oscar. Number 3, Elemental. I'm kind of surprised that this has got boosted because it had a lot of legs at the box office. This was kind of seen as a failure in the beginning, but over time it has grown a lot of momentum and people really, really enjoy it now. I'm kind of surprised. I didn't really think too much of that movie. I think it's fine. It's okay. It's charming. It's definitely a great movie for kids. If you're a family and you want to show your kids a great movie, I think that this is not a bad choice at all. It's very, very wholesome and a nice story, but it's far from Pixar's best. Let's get this straight. It's far from Pixar's best. I think it is close to bottom to middle tier Pixar in my eyes, but people enjoy it, and that's great. So there is a possibility here that it could pull an upset. I really don't think so, but I think it gets in for sure as a nomination. For Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, people love this movie, and I'm not surprised. It looked great. I haven't seen it yet, but I do want to check it out for sure. The style looks fantastic. I cannot wait to see it, and I think that this gets in for sure. 5, I'm still going Super Mario Brothers movie. I know it's not the greatest movie in the world. I'm not the biggest fan of it personally, but it made a lot of money, and some people really, really enjoyed it, especially Mario fans. There is a lot to love there. Illumination make great movies for families, and they've done that again here, despite the fact that this film isn't the best movie ever, or one of the best animated movies of the year. Far from it. But I think its impact overall on the world is enough to get it to sneak in for a nomination. Okay, we're on to technical categories. I think Oppenheimer takes cinematography home, being this big IMAX film that blew a lot of people away. A lot of the visuals are fantastic. The lighting is brilliant. It's just a technically almost flawless movie, I think, and it's going to get paid a lot of dues there, especially with Dune Part 2 out. That was the one that would take a number of categories from it, I think. Cinematography being one of them. Dune Part 2 had a genuine chance of winning cinematography over Oppenheimer, but now that Dune's gone, I think Oppenheimer can take a breath and be relieved at the fact that it has a lot easier of a race. Poor Things is the one that could upset it. It looks stunning, and honestly, from what I've seen from the trailer, I think the cinematography in Poor Things could be better than Oppenheimer, but the Academy don't go for more wacky forms of cinematography. Wes Anderson movies don't get nominated every year, even though I think they're some of the most stunning films that I've ever seen. The French Dispatch being one of them. Love or hate that movie, you cannot deny that The French Dispatch is visually flawless. It is so fantastic looking, but it didn't get nominated, so we could see something similar with Poor Things. Even though it's not like Wes Anderson really, it still is going for a more quirky vibe, which, as I said, just doesn't play into what the Academy really looks for with cinematography. Number 3, Maestro. As I said, being like Mank, it looks like Mank in a lot of ways, especially those black and white sequences. And the colored sequences look really grandiose and amazing. I think that it gets in for sure. The trailer, those images look stunning. Number 4, Killers of the Flower Moon. Martin Scorsese movies always get into this category. The Irishman got in. His framing and the lighting in his movies are always great. He is a master. We know this, and cinematography plays a part in that for sure. Number 5, I have Barbie, just because it's so colorful and expressive that I think its cinematography is hard to deny, I think, and we'll get it in just because of its unique color palette and its very interesting stylistic choices. Number 6, The Zone of Interest. There's not much to say here. It's probably going to be a very technically well-made movie that looks great. What more is there to say? Number 7, Saltburn. The imagery from the trailer looked fantastic. It looked a little bit more stunning than Promising Young Woman. A bit of a step up for Emerald Fennell. And I really can't wait to see a little bit more of this imagery when I see the film. And it could be a category that could compete in cinematography for sure. Number 8, Asteroid City. As I said, The French Dispatch didn't get nominated, so I really don't see why Asteroid City would. Even though Asteroid City looks fantastic, I would nominate it if I had the choice, and it'd be a strong contender for a win because I think Wes Anderson movies are always stunning, and Asteroid City is definitely another one of those for sure. Number 9, El Conde. Having seen the movie, the cinematography is the one thing in the movie that I would say is outstanding. A lot of people didn't really like my take on the movie, which was surprising because the reviews for it were kind of middling, and I just kind of agreed with that in a lot of ways. I didn't really enjoy my time with the movie. for many reasons, but the cinematography wasn't one of them. It was definitely a stunning movie, and I give it credit for that. Number 10, The Killer. The framing in David Fincher movies are always just flawless. As I said, meticulously well-designed films come from David Fincher, and I'm really not expecting anything different with The Killer. Best production design, I'm not changing it. I think Barbie wins. The fact that a lot of them just look like the toy sets from Barbie come to life is enough to get it that win. And there's been a lot of campaigning in this category. It's not often that you see a ton of campaigning in production design that gets really widespread, but you had this big interview with Margot Robbie on the set, and it was kind of showcasing what they all look like and making everyone go, oh my god, the craftsmanship here is unbelievable. So I think that happens to translate to a win in production design. Number 2, I have Poor Things, because that production design looks fantastic. The only issue that I could have with it in terms of it getting a win is the fact that some of it looks like visual effects and some of it's production design. What they do have for production design looks stunning, but I think it gets a bit of an extra push if some of that stuff that I think is visual effects is actually production design, if you know what I mean. Number 3, Oppenheimer. They build a whole town. It's very well known what they did here. It looks amazing on the film for sure. It really helps bring this whole era to life. But I think Barbie and what it manages to achieve is a little bit more memorable than Oppenheimer. 4, Killers of the Flower Moon, kind of a similar deal. They've built a lot of the sets. Martin Scorsese doesn't really rely on visual effects almost ever. The Irishman was a bit of an outlier for him, using that de-aging technology. But in terms of the widespread production design, that was all built too. And we're just seeing more of the same here. It is a consistently stunning aspect to Marty's movies, and Killers of the Flower Moon will get a nomination here. 5, I think Asteroid City might get a nomination in production design when The French Dispatch didn't. As I said, I think Asteroid City is a little bit more well-liked than The French Dispatch overall, and that just might be enough to get it to squeeze in for production design. I hope so. I really want to see a little bit more Wes Anderson recognition at the Oscars, and this would be a great category to do it for sure. 6, I have Wonka. The new trailer came out, and I really think the movie looks fun. I know it copped a lot of criticism, especially in the first trailer, but I think this looks like a good time. The production design does look good, but it is over-relying on visual effects in some areas, which could hurt its chances in getting a nomination. Number 7, The Color Purple. They've built a lot of these houses and sets. It definitely looks kind of amazing what they've done there, but I don't think it's enough to push it into a nomination. Number 8, Napoleon. I need to see how much visual effects they rely on, but what they've got for the sets look very grand, kind of what you would want from a historical epic. Number 9, Saltburn. They're in this really cool mansion, and there's these big parties, and I think the production design looks great. I've heard comparisons to Babylon, and that did get nominated for production design, so if it kind of follows suit there, potential nomination for sure. And Maestro, I think that there are kind of a few sets in there that did look pretty cool, but I don't know if it's a massive standout of the movie to get a nomination. Editing, I am starting to sound like a broken record. Oppenheimer, I think, wins because it is supremely well edited. It's just a technical marvel, this movie. Editing is definitely a part of that. The same can be said for Killers of the Flower Moon. I don't agree with it getting editing nominations, especially lately, because hate me if you want, but I think The Irishman is bloated. It is too long. It is just far too long. I'm all for a 3-hour movie or a longer movie. Don't get me wrong. Babylon last year was my movie of the year, and I love The Wolf of Wall Street, which is a 3-hour movie. But to be over 3 hours, you need to be electric in your pacing. There can't be no slow burn stuff in there. It bogs it down too much for a movie that long, and you feel exhausted by the end of it, and you don't really want to watch it again. At least that's what I feel. If Killers of the Flower Moon does that, I definitely won't agree that the editing is all that great, to be honest with you, even if it is meticulous. The fact that you're not cutting stuff out to make the pacing better hurts the editing. However, Killers of the Flower Moon could be really, really exciting. I'm excited to see it. I want to give it the benefit of the doubt, regardless of what I think. Even if I think that the editing and its too long and everything like that, I think it still gets in. It doesn't matter what I think there. I think Killers of the Flower Moon gets in for editing for sure. Poor Things, I think, gets in for editing because it looks just so creative, and there's going to be some very great editing flourishes in there. Yorgos Lanthimos films are very well edited, I think. Number 4, The Holdovers, kind of that Green Book style editing, I think, where it's kind of snapping between people talking and it's going to just go at a very brisk pace, I think will be the kind of editing that gets this recognition, I think, and what puts The Holdovers over. Number 5, Barbie. There's these compilations, there's a big montage scene. We've all seen the movie, and it looks great for sure, and definitely helps the movie. So it being very noticeable and big, if you know what I mean. The Oscars love big, flashy, noticeable editing, whether it's good or not. Bohemian Rhapsody had terrible editing, but won the Academy Award in this category. Barbie has a lot better editing than Bohemian Rhapsody, don't get me wrong, but it is flashy, and that is what gets it noticed. 6, Anatomy of a Fall, being that courtroom drama, snapping between people, having this very dynamic dialogue, and I think it will be edited from the point of view from the courtroom and what's going on there to the actual incident. That's how the trailer's kind of making it out to look. I'll definitely have a better understanding of this when I see the movie, but that is very flashy and very interesting choice that I think helps it get a nomination. Number 7, Ferrari, being that kind of technical showcase, I guess, having these big loud cars and everything, is enough, I think, to get a nomination in editing. But Ferrari's reception hurts it a lot. American Fiction, Maestro, and Air all seem like they have really great editing, but I don't think it's enough to get into. I'm going to start speedrunning through a couple of these categories just because it's 2 a.m. in the morning and I want to get through this video. It's already very long. Thank you for bearing with me up to this stage. Number 1, Barbie. The costume design looks amazing. What more is there to say? Number 2, Poor Things. It kind of has those period era costumes. The favorite got in for this category, and I don't see why Poor Things doesn't. Number 3, The Color Purple. Once again, period era costumes. They always do well at the Academy Awards, and we could see that here. Wonka at number 4, I think, has some flashy costume design. It looks very fun. It could get snubbed maybe if the film doesn't do that well. There is a world where this film just gets hated on by a lot of people, 100%, and that could push it down. Number 5, Napoleon. Once again, another period era film. There's going to be a lot of great costumes in this movie, I think, and it has a solid chance of getting a nomination. Best score goes to Oppenheimer. It's really the only one that people are consistently talking about. I think it's great. I don't think it's one of Nolan's best in terms of one of his films. I know he doesn't do the scores. This is from Ludwig Göransson, who is a fantastic composer and does a great job here, but I just don't think it's one of the best scores in a Nolan film, even though it is great for sure and definitely enough to win. I think if Dune Part 2 was here, it would have won for sure. Hans Zimmer's score there is just fantastic. He's on the top of his game there, and he's the greatest composer of all time, so that's hard to compete with. But anyway, number 2, Poor Things. If the score is similar to what they're playing in the trailer, very quirky, unique score that I think captures the essence of this film beautifully, and that's what you want from a score. Number 3, Maestro. I mean, this movie's about a composer, so it having really great music kind of needs to be essential, I think. It needs to be very classy and incredible, and I think it really will. Once again, if the score's like what it is in the trailer, could be a brilliant score. 4, Killers of the Flower Moon. I think that this will have a great score. Martin Scorsese movies always do. The Irishman, I think, was a fantastic score. 5, Past Lives, one of my favorite scores of the year. I absolutely adore it and would love to see it get in. And it is noticeable enough, I think, to get in. And Best Sound, Oppenheimer takes it away. It was the best use of sound that I had heard the entire year. The bomb scene, oh my god, what they did there. Just a brilliant use of silence and then hitting you with the full force of what Christopher Nolan does with sound. Mind-blowing stuff. Some of the best implementation of sound in a while, I think. Probably since Sound of Metal. Just great stuff, I think. Really innovative too. and kind of goes against what we're used to from Christopher Nolan at times. Very well implemented. I would love to see this win. Number 2, Ferrari. You've got the loud cars. What more is there to say? Number 3, The Creator. Just because it's that big epic movie, there are a lot of explosions and things like that. And the sound does sound incredible. There are some great moments in there for sure. Number 4, The Killer. Once again, I think there's going to be a great juxtaposition of complete dead silence and focus from this character, and then loud bombastic moments. I can see that happening with this movie. And because of that, I do think it's a potential contender in sound. 5, Napoleon, the big epic battles. They're going to be loud. They're going to be crazy. You're going to hear swords clanging against each other. You're going to hear explosions. There's a shot of them shooting the Sphinx in Egypt. It all looks amazing, and it will probably sound amazing as well. Best makeup and hairstyling, I have Maestro taking it home, because look at Bradley Cooper. Need I say more? Go to number 2, Poor Things. Look at Willem Dafoe. Need I say more? Number 3, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Look at Drax. Need I say more? Number 4, Priscilla. I mean, Priscilla's going to be wearing all of this makeup. You're going to have Elvis probably in makeup as well. They're very interesting personalities. And I think it's going to look great in that aspect. And it's probably going to get praised for its hairstyling too. The hairstyling looks fantastic in this movie. Number 5, Naiad, I think is maybe an underrated contender here, because it's not what you'd expect. It's not this period film where everyone's wearing big dresses, crazy makeup and hair. It's more of the fact that she's getting sun damage and she's got dry lips and her face is all dry, and those effects are taking place that could be enough to get it in. Best visual effects, I have Oppenheimer. I know a lot of it's practical and a lot of it isn't computer generated. They kind of enhance the explosions a little bit more, but it's all practical, and that's the beauty of Christopher Nolan. But that doesn't matter. Tenet won in this category, and similar deal, there was probably less visual or computer effects in that movie than in Oppenheimer. There were a couple in the end with some of the buildings, but a lot of that was practical. They really crashed that plane into a building, and I think they kind of take that into account. A lot of that practicality, I think, people vote for in visual effects. Top Gun Maverick was a really strong contender last year. Even though they were in real jets and they were flying them for real, they kind of made some explosions and that was it. It wasn't this crazy grand scale digital effects like Avatar, but because it was practical and using practical effects, I think Academy voters really gave it a boost because of that. Even though that's technically what it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be more for computer generated stuff. And for that reason, at number 2, I have The Creator, because you have a little bit more of that computer generated stuff. Even though they were very practical with this movie, and that is why they managed to keep it under $100 million budget. It's kind of impressive that Gareth Edwards could do that. And the film looks amazing. The robots look great. The sets look amazing. And when it goes to those big scale moments, they all look great. And there's not a moment where I'm like, those visual effects kind of took me out of the movie. It never happened. And for that, I do see it getting in for visual effects. Number 3, I have Napoleon, just because you've got these massive battles, and there's definitely going to be a lot of visual effects there in terms of putting a lot more people on the battlefield. I don't think it will all be extras, even though they'll probably do their best to have as many as possible. But there will be a lot of people in the background and stuff that I think are going to make these scenes look real grand. 4, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Rocket Raccoon always looks amazing in these movies. The visual effects, unlike a lot of Marvel films recently, looks fantastic, I think, apart from 1 or 2 scenes. But overall, I think it looked great. And I think it deserves a little bit more recognition compared to a lot of what you'd expect from Marvel, because to me, it might be my favorite MCU film. I think it has a lot more weight to it compared to a lot of MCU films. It felt a lot more substantial because of that. And because it does do all those things, I think it should get some recognition personally. And number 5, I have Ferrari. They've got these cars, big races and everything like that. And even though it's probably practical, again, it doesn't really matter, I think. As long as they do a little bit of patching to make some of the scenes look a little bit more grand, I think that's enough to maybe get it in for sure. And that's it. Those are my Oscar predictions for October. Let me know what your predictions are in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. I'm sure you're not going to agree with all of these takes. We're still in October. We've got plenty of time left. There's going to be a ton more predictions. There's probably going to be another one post the film festival and a couple of other movies that I'm going to see, because I'm going to have a lot more context and a lot more knowledge on a lot of these films after I see them. And I really cannot wait to get those reviews out to you. And then just a quick update on this channel. I know it's been a while since I last posted, just because content's kind of been like this lately.
I knew exactly what to do, but in a much more real sense, I had no idea what to do.
I just have had no ideas of what to do. There haven't been that many movies to come out, not that much that I was really interested in discussing with you, but in the next kind of 2 weeks, content's going to be like this. After this video, I probably won't have another video out for probably a little bit over a week, because I am having to travel for work, so I just can't get any videos out. Really sad, I know. I really want to get some more stuff out, but I just can't. But after then, I will be reviewing Killers of the Flower Moon. I'll be seeing The Killer, so I will be reviewing that. And then I will be going to the Brisbane International Film Festival, as I mentioned. Now, these are the movies that I'm going to see, and I will be having full reviews for each of them. So, I will be covering Poor Things, Earth Mama, Strange Way of Life, Anatomy of a Fall, Late Night with the Devil, All of Us Strangers, Monster, Saltburn, May December, and Next Goal Wins. So I'm very excited to check out all of these movies. I love going to BIFF. I'm going to be exhausted. It's a long process getting these videos done and trying to contend with the things in my day-to-day life, but it's so fun, and I cannot wait to check all of these out. Full reviews for every single one of these, 100%. I'll also be hoping to do some different things around the festival in terms of my coverage of it, and I would really love to do a ranking of these movies as well. So that will be happening. All of these reviews will be happening. The first film I see at the festival will be Poor Things on the 27th of October, so you're going to see a stream of content happen after that date for sure. It's going to be really exciting. If you are going to BIFF, I know some of you that have watched my videos, at least in the past, have gone to BIFF previously. If you're going this year and you're going to some of these screenings, happy to have a chat about some of these movies. I love talking film with anyone. So definitely come say hi, and I would just love to talk about these with you. So with all of that said, I really hope you enjoyed these predictions. I'd love to hear what you think, and I cannot wait to discuss all these films with you. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.